We're here again, John Weber and Dr. James Moss, discussing the exciting new topic of 5D perception, how it's making headways in our society and in our own spiritual spaces. We want to continue that discussion. Welcome, Dr. Moss.
Hi, John. Wonderful to be here.
So, you talked briefly about what we're going to call 5D spaces, and this is such a unique topic, and it's very, very fun to be exploring these spiritual spaces. And to many people, it's really hard, perhaps, to grasp, and we're trying to put these spiritual concepts into narratives that can touch us within in our spiritual space. That means understanding that we're not really talking about anything specific on a narrative. Although we may reference narratives, we're really talking about a spiritual dimension. And you had some ideas on sharing the concepts of time, past, future, present, now, and how that spiritual perception manifests within our 5D perception.
Yes, especially recently, been contacted by several people who were out of the most recent past, 10 or 15 years. And, most recently, since the year began, we've had several disasters, several occurrences, nature, and such as the wildfires in California, earlier the hurricanes on the East Coast. Many people were impacted, and people have reached out over social media trying to contact each other. In the Palisades, for example, I was contacted by several people that I knew years ago, just saw me on social media. And because they were impacted and families were impacted, I at one time lived in the Sacramento area, so in Northern California, while in a house on the East Coast as well, while doing business, and had friends reach out to me, but because they were impacted personally, they reached out to me, they saw me on social media, and their perspectives had changed because they had personal, relatives, friends, family were affected by things they had no control over. And this had a personal effect in their lives. So while we're looking in one aspect and things don't seem to impact us or affect us, now we're having to change our views on things because things are affecting us and our family. And it has a sudden impact on us from an emotional standpoint, also brings us into a different mindset. And we begin to see things. The narratives change because of such an impact on us and our families. Whereas before, we see things happening to other people, and we don't have not a callous disregard for others. We might donate or help people out or give, but it's not happening to us personally. So we're not affected personally by it. But now when things are happening in our small circles, and they do impact us and our family, our immediate families, we tend to have a different perspective on the matter. So we see things differently, and it impacts our world. And that whole sphere changes. So the paradigm shifts for us. And it changes our perspective on things, our views. So I noticed that in our interactions and people I hadn't, people surfaced that I hadn't talked to in years. So I noticed how their perspectives changed. They actually listened to the podcast that we were doing. Several mentioned that, hey, this impacted me in a special way. That's why I reached out to you. I want to talk to you now and, ask more about this 3D, 5D perspective. I see things a little bit different, see things in my kids. Hadn't paid attention to that before. And I see them growing up. There's a space between us now. And I didn't really know how to identify, talk with them. And I see that gap, and I just wanted to talk to you, see what's going on right now. And they're paying more attention. And I noticed that, John. People are really reaching out for answers. Um,
Very interesting. And yes, and the conflict that has been brewing in the United States for the past decade or so has had its toll. It's taken its toll. And we're seeing more and more items will be manifesting within our realities. But typically, we can get ourselves emotionally tied up to stories. So in your case, you have friends or family from the LA fires who are being affected. I feel as if most of us are sucked down a rabbit hole of watching this stuff and being traumatized and being afraid, and we resonate with the visuals we see on TV, and most of the time we're creating our own suffering by engaging in spiritual energies that are not even attached to us. We choose to attach to them by watching this stuff. And so 5D perception really is going inside of ourselves and noticing where we put our attention. And most people in 5D spend time meditating. They're contemplative. They close their eyes, they breathe, they concentrate on their breathing, and they try to find space in their thoughts. They try to find the awareness that's within them, that's watching their own thinking. And we'll notice in a meditative state, as we're sitting still, words start flowing through our head. We start worrying about what's going to happen with the politics. We're going to worry about what's going to happen with the fires or the drones or nuclear war or World War III. And none of these things are actually in our reality. They're just spiritual energies. And we can choose to resonate with them by grabbing those thoughts as they fly by. So rather than grabbing the negative thoughts that fly by, we want to be conscious in our awareness as we're watching our own thinking. What thoughts are we grabbing hold of? Because we'll discover that we tend to have patterns. And if our pattern is one that we grab hold of the fear, we grab hold of the worry, we grab hold of the complaining, we grab hold of all of those draining energies, we will manifest a drained life. So in 5D, we want to be conscious of where we put our awareness. Where do we put our attention? And we recommend that we put our attention on what makes us feel whole, what makes us feel good, what makes us feel complete, what makes us feel valid, and resonate in those thoughts. Pull those scenarios down. Watch those videos. Listen to those messages so that we choose to vibrate in a positive, whole, healthy way. Bring a smile to your day. Bring a smile to your attitude. Bring a smile to your neighbor. Try to resonate in that 5D space. The positive 5D space. The negative 5D space. It's all right there for you to grab hold of. 5D perspective, 5D perception is realizing that. And so we, from our awareness, we notice what we're grabbing hold of, what thoughts we're entertaining, what TV channels we're watching, what news stuff that we're feeding our brains and our heart and our stomach, because all of those things have an effect. 5D perception is we realize that they have an effect, and we actually take control of our perception by choosing to grab the thoughts that resonate with us. And that is 90% of what we actually deal with in life. It's thoughts. It's not so much literal fires in our backyard.
So, John, would you recommend any habits or disciplines a person could practice or do on a daily basis to try to replace some of the negative things that they may, or unlearn some of the things that they may be doing in the negative spaces?
Well, certainly there are lots of practices that are recommended, and rather than me recommending anything, I would say go to your own history, go to your own religion, go to your own family traditions, go to the people in your life who are the positive people in your life. And you know they're positive by the spiritual sensation that resonates within you when you're around them, you know. And you need to discover those who drain you and those situations that hurt you. And the biggest relationship that you need to repair is your relationship with you. What do you choose to think about? What do you choose to resonate with? What do you choose to watch and feed your heart and your mind and your brain and your awareness? And if you're binging on Netflix all day, you're not even in reality. You're not in control of anything. You're a puppet. You're a puppet just being maneuvered by whatever energies are on the screen. You're not in control of your life. That's not 5D perception. That's the 3D matrix, and we're all stuck in that. And that is dense, and it's draining, and there's just so much negativity within that 3D matrix space. So the 5D is about resonating with your own heart and saying, where do I really want to be? Like, what type of life do I want to live? What type of world do I want to live in? And if we don't like what's going on around us, we need to redefine what's going on around us and put it into a positive hue to be able to resonate in a positive direction. That's the only way to change our reality. That's 5D perception, because whatever is actually happening in our life, like literally, you know, what's happening with me and my family as we go to the beach or we go to the mall or we go to visit friends or we go on vacation or we're doing family dinner, there's a direct, literal, physical interaction reality that we live in. And we want to be fully conscious and fully aware in those interactions to make sure that we're acting in a way that's pulling from our own higher nature, and we're working with smiles, and we're working with love and support, and we're not stirring the negatives in debate and arguments and fear-mongering. We free ourselves from those things. Spiritually, we have to recognize that we are in control of our own countenance, of our own vibrational frequency. And the higher we can vibe, the better our life, the better our experience. Because life is only an experience. And we get to define it. In 5D, that's what we do. We define our reality.
Totally agree, John. It's up to us. And it's like a chessboard. When you make the first move, as you move more into the game, it's not so rigid. There become endless possibilities. And as you progress, you can see it not from a competitor standpoint, but you begin to see, you position yourself, and you don't have to take a rigid stance against an opponent, but you begin to see how you can set things up either for success or wins, and it becomes little battles basically that help you to get to a particular point where you can understand strategies and you can execute things and you can both learn from each other. You can set up for win-win situations if you like. It's your drawing board, so to speak. You can both learn. You can make the game last for as long as you like, and you can have fun. It's pages that you can write on, and depending upon how you set things up, it's your own personal playground. It's your space. You can learn from each other. You can enjoy it, and you can have fun with it. But as you said, it's your life to choose to do what you want, what in agreement, as long as the rules, you're not hurting anyone, no one's hurting you. The basic rules are followed because there are consequences to everything. But if you play fair, and it's not so much a game as it is as interplay. I was on the way here early this morning, and I felt like a leaf floating down a river, in and out of traffic, the ebb and flow, different counties. It's a couple of 100 miles drive. So whether the speed changed within 10, 15, 20 miles an hour, but I felt like I was ebbing and flowing with the traffic and going back and forth, and you see different things, but it's a process. You're moving back and forth, and it's like a dance. So it's a give and take. Life is like that in so many ways.
Yeah, the awareness that you're aware, the awareness that you are aware. You reference playing chess, and in life, as in playing chess, you tend to follow rules. You tend to follow a pattern. I'm using this strategy or that strategy, and you can detect that your competitor is using a specific strategy. So one of the things that really keep us stuck in the cobweb of the matrix are our habits. What do we do on a daily basis? So most of us don't even think. We wake up and we just do our routine. We make our bed or we brush our teeth or whatever the routine is. And there's not a lot of consciousness put into anything. We're kind of like unconscious as we interact with our world. And if you think as a child when you first learned to drive, do you remember how fun it was? It was so exciting to be able to drive a car. Oh my God, it was the most exciting, exhilarating thing that you could ever imagine, and you couldn't wait to drive the car. And now we drive unconsciously. We get in the car, boom, I'm driving to work, and so I just drive to work. Although this particular day I wasn't going to work. I was supposed to be going to play golf, but all of a sudden I found myself in front of my office because all of a sudden I realized that I was completely unconscious because I wasn't actually aware of driving my car and being in the moment and being in this now experience, recognizing that I'm living in a matrix, and this matrix plays with my mind and manipulates me in such a way that I don't even think for myself anymore. My world, every decision is made for you. Boom, the alarm clock goes off. It's time to get up. It's time to go to my job. It's time to put in my 8 hours. It's time to come home from my 8 hours and just try to sit up and rest and watch my TV shows and go through my routine. And we just have a routine that takes place month after month, year after year, decade after decade. That world, that matrix is falling apart currently. It is falling apart, and it's going to get more and more intense, more and more scary, more and more worrisome to those who are in the matrix, because it is collapsing and it is breaking apart. And the freedom is not in a business plan. It's not in purchasing gold or in purchasing Bitcoin, although you can do those things. The freedom is a spiritual space that we have to find for ourselves. We have got to discover how we are manipulated and we're slapped upside the head by life every single day. The news comes on and we get jacked. Someone cuts us off and we get jacked. the food overcooks and we get jacked, and we become totally triggered by everything that's happening around us because we are unconscious. So 5D is going above all that, discovering all those things that are triggering me, and choosing to be the awareness watching that happen and not allowing ourselves to just react. We need to be able to see it, view it. We can respond if we need to, although most of the time we should do nothing. We should do nothing more than realize how manipulated we are by the game.
You know, I had that personal experience of watching my body shut down over the past 2 years, going through illness after illness and getting to a situation where I had no control. After a long, intensive surgery, 16 hours, and in watching, actually going through the process of no stomach activity and gas, having gas, I mean, really intense gas, stomach starting again and everything after Whipple surgery, with the cancer operation, and going through that process, being in the hospital 2.5 months after congestive heart failure. I had to do all of that, and I felt like a conductor of sorts. My body had shut down, and organs had shut down, and most of the organs, several organs, were removed. So I was in a situation where I was powerless, where I had tubes coming in and out, and I had to actually get myself together again in order to start walking, moving about. I had no routine anymore. Everything was totally kaput. I mean, I was in one place, carrying around feeding tubes and everything else, and going from one little chair. I couldn't really even go to the bathroom. So I was shut down. My whole system had collapsed. And for a while, people were, caring for me, and I really felt powerless. I felt like I couldn't do anything for myself. I wanted a routine so bad. I wanted to get back into life and do something for myself, but months, and stayed in the bed back and forth. And John, I felt power. I felt like a baby. I was just frustrated at myself. I got angry. I felt like throwing something. I had no control of my world anymore. Like you said, I felt powerless. I couldn't help myself. So gradually, and I was losing weight. I lost over 100 and some odd pounds. I'd never been there before. This was a new thing for me because I was in control before. And now I'm dealing with things that I can't deal with. I can't do anything. And this was all new for me, and if a caregiver. So I totally empathize. I totally understand. And that was almost a 2-year ordeal. So I know how bad I needed structure in my life. I wanted to do something. I wanted, something. I needed a plan. And, we talked extensively. I so much wanted to get back into a routine, get back into things, and, find myself again. I identified with having a plan and having something to do. That's who I thought I was. That's what I'd been in the past, and I thought, boy, I just, to be a man, to be able to do this, I had to have an identity, a job description. That's what identified, who is Dr. James Moss? This is who I am, and that's not at all who I was.
So where are you today with who you are?
Today I'm identifying with the true me, the me inside, the me that I've known from childhood now. I'm meeting that person now. And finally, face to face in the mirror, realizing that I look different than what I guess, memories were as a child, but meeting each other finally and identifying with self and realizing that it's a short trip from, coming into this earth and then looking at yourself, 60, 70 years later and realizing that, hey, embracing who you are, because it's a one to a box theory. Can sort of, when you leave here, it's only you. But I'm so glad and grateful and that I'm here. I'm still here. And if the one thing that I know that I want to do, I want to kind of leave a legacy. I want to be able to do something, maybe inspire someone else coming along that same path, and be able to say, hey, I've stepped in some poo poo along the way. I've made some mistakes. I've done this, done that. And I don't know any particular way. I can't advise you to say, well, this is the right way, that's the right way. You have to do you and find your own route. Find what fits you. But here's some things that I was able to do, and this worked out, this didn't. But you got to try. You got to be able to. I put something in the back of my business cards at one time. It was act. You have to be able to just move, to do something. Action changes things. It's the only thing it does. And if you're afraid, I often use the phrase of being a porcupine in a balloon factory. You don't want to move. You can't let fear hold you back. You have to be able to do, like you said, Jonathan, and you're absolutely right. We get programmed and we sit there in fear. We have to live our lives. We can't be afraid.
So fear is definitely a major component of our life, and fear is the beginning of wisdom, to quote scripture. And what's interesting is when we're a child, we have this amazing spirit. You watch a child, they're so engrossed in life because they're arriving in this physical body, and as they're learning to walk and play with things, and they put everything in their mouth because they're learning their physical reality, and they're becoming one with it. And it's an amazing, amazing experience that they're having. That's why every child, for the most part, is happy. And any child who's robbed of that, that creates shadows, and that creates negative sensations that we can carry them with us if we get stuck in that frequency of living. And most of us are products of our environment. So if we're in a good environment, we could probably have a pretty good life. And if we happen to be born not in the best of circumstances, likely our life will not be the best of a life, because we are in fact products of our environment. And the thing that we're reaching now in 5D is we're realizing that we do not have to be products of our environment. We can choose who we are, and we can live from a different space. So our life does not change. Nothing changes in our life. We still have to pay our bills. We still have to go to work. But we can start looking at the things that we do in life and how much of our life is actually suffering versus how much of our suffering is in our head because we're choosing to latch on to past memories. We keep feeding that dark side with negative narratives and with social justice arguments and with remaining feeling like a victim. All of those things resonate within us. And if we find ourselves dark and unhealthy, that's a spiritual vibration. And the only way that we can potentially fix that is to be aware of it first and foremost. That's the first step. Be aware of what is going on inside of you. And so if in fact inside of you you feel unloved, you feel uncared for, you feel victimized, the first thing you've got to do is love you. The awareness that knows everything and is aware of the victimization and is aware of the suffering and is aware of all the things that's there. We need to love ourselves. We need to be able to love ourselves, to be able to say, let me love you, let me help you, meaning we're helping ourselves. And we help ourselves by moving in a direction that feels whole, which is love. That place of joy. What is it, the things that we want to do? And be mindful of living from that 5D perception. Be mindful of the fact that I choose my reality. I choose to live in a vibrational frequency that's down. If that's the choices that you make, that's the outcome you experience. And if you want a better life and you want a better outcome, we've got to change ourselves spiritually, because as we change on the inside, our reality on the outside changes with us. And we are right now exploding into 5D perception. And in that 5D perception, everything is coming true. Everything is being revealed. Every problem is being exposed. And every governmental agency and every institution, all of these things are facing chaos, and the chaos is going to continue as more and more whistleblowers come out and we really expose how broken we are in our matrix of reality. In our 3D world, it's broken. But as we individually reach 5D perception, we see how broken it is. And we realize that it doesn't have to be broken for us, because I get to choose wholeness, because that's a spiritual place inside of me and I get to live from that. And we're going to resonate with those who are resonating at 5D, and we're going to work together with synchronicity and purpose as we move collectively towards making things better. And the longer that we fight into the system, the longer we fight against change, the longer we fight against the people that we don't like, or we fight against anything, that is 3D. 5D is love. I love you. I love life. I love everything. How can I love everything? How can I love being stuck in a traffic jam? Those sensations are there. And we can all talk about whatever particular processes that we use or traditions that we follow to make those things happen, and we can experience those things, or we can remain unconscious and suffer more and more, and the more unconscious will become more chaotic, and there will be more and more suffering, and the suffering will continue to go on in our life until we come to a 5D perception and let go of all the nonsense, let go of all the things that trigger us, let go of all the fears and worries. 99.9% of the stuff that we think and worry about, it's not even happening to us. Yes, it may be happening around the world, but it's not happening to us. And we're on a big planet with lots of people, billions of people. We would never know everybody. So we don't have to suffer in suffering. We don't have to be in suffering. We can choose to be in love and light. And that's 5D perception. And you're invited.
Such a wonderful place. And if we would make it a better planet by uniting in that perception, that attitude, we could make it a better place. All the pieces joined together to formulate a bigger picture. And I think if we would just choose to, we would change things.
And why don't we choose to?
That's a good question. It's a good question.
Do you have a thought on that to share?
Well, there's so many realities, there's so many perceptions, it's an evolution of change. It evolves. Again, back to the chessboard example, when the moves start, the inception of things, we're constantly in flux. We're constantly in one state or another. Some people in a gaseous mode. Some people are going up to the clouds. Some people are falling back as rain. Water's H2O in any form, and it's constantly changing. But matter never really goes away. It's always there. Whether it be an ocean, whether it be a drop, whether it be a puddle, it's all H2O. And all of it's us. We're everywhere. We exist in everywhere. Omnipresent. That's who we are. But we're constantly learning. We're learning creatures. We're all over the place. And I think we're constantly evolving. So we're in different stages of development. Some of us in 3D, some of us in 5D, some of us are in between. And we're constantly growing.
We are indeed, and we do dance from one vibrational frequency to another. And ultimately, the spiritual quest is about recognizing our own inner space, resonating with ourselves, seeing where we're going spiritually. Are we happy? Are we healthy? Are we evil? Are we dangerous? Those are questions that we need to look at, and we need to distinguish, because we are all going to interact in the 3D matrix, because that's what our world is, and it's not going away. We're still going to be human beings, and we're still going to be having sexual relations, and we're going to be having arguments, and we're going to be cutting one another off, and we're going to be competitors, and all of those things are going to continue to occur. Except 5D is we're going to come to a higher awareness as a collective. So we're just going to say we don't need to do this anymore. Like we need to move on. And if you think about subjects that keep getting played, like slavery, in racism, and as long as we continue to polarize those topics, they will continue to exist and they'll continue to resonate. And yet, I don't think there's an American that I would ever meet that would say that they want to support slavery. And yet somehow that's a topic of conversation that carries so much dense, dark energy. And maybe some people, they don't want to let go of that because that's their identity. But at a higher degree, we just start to say, I don't think that's where we want to be as a civilization. Now, of course, referencing America because that's my civilization, and there may be other places throughout the earth where these things are not contemplated spiritually. I don't know, and I cannot reference them. But what I can say is that most of our suffering, most of our problems, most of the chaos are all in our broken thinking. We used to say all the stinking thinking that's out there, the craziness that's going on when you actually think about the decisions that are being made, and you look at the fires in California, and what actually transpired there, and why they put forth all this money to have water systems that could deal with that. They clearly have massive amounts of people, and they defunded the fire department. They defunded it again. How did they let a reservoir drain? And you realize that the people in charge are not even consciously aware of their own jobs. Like they just get a job, and they get a title, and they get a salary, and they're not even aware of the actual work product that's expected from that job. And we as a collective allow these things to happen because somehow we want to create, some kind of diversity, inclusion, equity and inclusion. So we start giving people jobs based on their race, not based on their competency and a specific skill. So, and again, no judgments other than the results. You can say something is working or something is not working. And the results in California wildfires is quite illuminating on failure. It's evidence of failure. And I would say the entire state, and homelessness, and the fact that they're allocating money instead of protecting the citizens, they're allocating money to give them to illegal residents and homeless, and then providing health insurance, or anyone who can get to California will be provided for. What an amazing spiritual, optimal idealism. But it's not attached to reality. So in order for us to truly manifest a 5D world, we have to have 5D consciousness, and we have to literally look at what's taking place around us. We have to look at the cause and effect, and we have to say, are we happy with this outcome? Are we happy with this outcome? And in our country, like right now, I consider us, we've almost been in a psychosis for the last 2 decades. We come to this 5D realization, and we say, okay, enough already, and we need the system to collapse, and we need the system to die, and we need to take the power out of the hands of those who are supposedly in control, and we've got to start living our own little communities built on love and connection, and working together for a better outcome. And we do that by working from our heart, working by what we know is right and what feels best. And we resonate in that space. And we bring our thinking and our mind and our conversations and everything that we can touch into harmony with that vibrational frequency. And in that higher spiritual vibration, we can manifest a bigger and a better solution. And we'll know that it's better because it will resonate that way in our soul.
I totally agree that we need our civilization to progress. We don't need to be a type 0 civilization and dwell in that. We need more ingenuity toward, we need better examples out there. And we need to get away from the lethargy, and just being satisfied with status quo, because that's not going to move. That's not going to move us forward on the dial, so to speak. And if we allow that, then anarchy will follow in many cases. And we are seeing the world fall apart. And if that continues, there won't be much left. And we don't want to go in that direction, because that's darkness.
I believe anarchy is upon us. We're living in this chaotic mess. And our collective consciousness coming to 5D awareness, we see it and we can change it. We can resonate in a different space. And the thing is, the answers are there because the answers are among us. And the thing that keeps us from obtaining those answers is our debating them, our wrestling for which ideas are better. And I think if we can just move forward and say, here's a problem, who wants to solve that problem, and what ideas do we have to solve that problem? And if we let those people who are experiencing these problems and resonating with solutions that are filling their heart with delight to be able to try to fix something, they have purpose, they have meaning, and it's resonating in their belly, and they align their thinking and their thoughts and their relationships around solutions, and we start working towards solutions. We change the direction of our world from being at war and challenging and constantly critiquing and fact-checking and arguing and debating because you're wrong and I'm right, or I'm right and you're wrong. All of that stuff, that's the 3D world, and that's dying. And if we don't get to 5D, or those who don't get to 5D, what will be the outcome?
John, these have been some of the things that have really been burning in my soul for a long, long time, since I was a child. And I know we had a brief conversation about it when you asked me questions about my childhood, and I was telling you that in our neighborhood, I saw the police, the fire, as the superheroes, because they had superpowers, the police powers and, the firemen, although there were some things that should have turned me against them. When I was a child, I was, sickly as a child, and we had to go to Hemmons Park, which was in Jacksonville. And I was a little boy, and we came to the park, and I saw the colored drinking fountains, which were in the middle of the park. And we were standing on one side waiting to transfer downtown in Jacksonville. And one point, the fire department came, and they opened the water hoses on a group of people there were kind of protesting at J.C. Penney's, and they were actually putting the police came, they had dogs. They let out of the car. They were sicking the dogs on people. I didn't understand it as a child, but they were breaking up a mob of people who were protesting prices and wages and stuff. And we were caught up in the mix. We were just trying to transfer buses so she can take me across town. I was being seen allergy testing for asthma. But my mom got, she lost me just for a few moments there, but I got blasted against the wall by a fire hose and skipped my knees and stuff. And and she got knocked down by the fire hose when I was trying to catch up with my mom. But should have been angry, and many people in my neighborhood were, many black kids, against the fire department, the police. So I had kids in my neighborhood who were wanting to be, we had a Panther group, Black Panthers, and they would side with them when they were talking about doing things for the community and helping the elderly and feeding programs and things like that with Head Start and all that. But many of the young kids became kind of militant, had attitudes against people. And I thought, and I eventually joined the police youth patrol, so everybody would call me like a traitor and all this stuff, But I got involved with the community and eventually got with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. So it helped me. And many of the kids looked at me like, I was different. But, I saw things very differently. And like I said, the seeds were planted then in my head. And I've often thought, this is why eventually I went on to found Relight America, which is an organization that I believe so wholeheartedly in and try to raise money and try to help youth and kids in DECA and high schools and stuff like that in order to try to make a change, to plant the seeds, to help young entrepreneurs. Because I believe that these things will make a change. If we work hard to try to get to the starting line and help the youth, we can bridge the gap. We can help them, and they can help change their world. It's their world now. We're growing up in an area where we have to pass the baton on because we're too old to carry it. And it's their world. And like you said, if they don't have the tools to fix their world, if they don't know how, they don't have the knowledge, they can't Google wisdom and experience, and they don't have the common sense. They're being programmed, and they don't have the common sense to know it. And we help build this world, this old system that's collapsing now, but they don't know how to fix it. And they need guidance.
I think most children are at 5D. And I would say most people under 30, automatically, they're at 5D. I think it's the boomers and the Xers who are in this place between these two realities. And the solutions are going to come from those people who are 5D thinkers. And the young people today, yes, they can look at the world and they realize that it's broken. The whole thing is broken. And you and I realize that the whole thing is broken. And we admit that our own point of view is broken and that there is no right side of an argument. The fact that there's an argument means that there's something that's not in harmony, that something is out of alignment. And 5D is going to be a place of greater thoughts, and we will still always have the duality of 2 points of view. But we can align those in such a way that we attempt to accommodate everyone's needs. We attempt to accommodate everyone's desires. And when we make that the focus, we don't make the focus of getting our needs met. We make it the focus of helping others get their needs met. And when we start looking out for one another, when I look out for me, there's me looking out for me. And that's the first place we should start, and we should love ourselves. And once you establish that 5D perception, you start looking out for everyone else in your world. And so before you know it, rather than us just thinking about ourselves, we're now thinking about one another. And when there's 1,000 people thinking what's going to be best for you, that's going to be a better place to live. If everyone is looking to help the other, if everyone is looking to provide solutions and to provide answers, and not to provide blame, not to do accusations, but to just move towards solutions. And we put all of our collective thought, all of our collective intelligence, all of our collective technologies toward being able to move in that direction, because by changing ourselves, we actually change the world we live in. And right now our world is changing dramatically, and to many it feels like a scary, dangerous place, but I would suggest that it's becoming better and better by the second, as we're not breaking, we're breaking free. We're actually developing freedom, freedom of thought, freedom in understanding. And when we move collectively from this higher 5D perception, we're going to have massively more positive outcomes. And that's kind of where we're at. And so as we reach the end of our podcast here, James, anything particular that you feel we've missed or that you'd like to add to the discussion before we wrap it up?
Well, just in closing, I'm noticing more and more younger people engaging in, well, they're interested. They're very interested. I was just at the Mercedes dealership yesterday. I had to get my car checked out, the electronics, the digital portion for the insurance company. And it was a young salesman in his early 20s. He was having a discussion in the waiting area with an older woman, she's probably in her 30s, about political debates and Senate nominations stuff. And he had a bit of trouble talking with her about a couple of the Senate nominations, and she figured it was, basically they had a squabble about something. And he said, well, you just have a 3D perspective on things. And that caught my attention. And I was sitting there waiting for somebody, one of the service reps, to talk to me. And he introduced himself and everything. He said, I like your car. I like what, as we started talking about my car. That was the initial point of conversation. And then he told me about these Maybachs sitting on the roof. And I said, yeah, I admire those, and talked to him about that. And he said, I'd love to show you one. And so we kind of got in that conversation, but he talked about that. We started talking about 5D perspective. So I know that, and he said, well, man, I heard a couple of podcasts about that. I loved it. And I told him, and he said, John Weber? And so we started talking. So apparently he's heard the podcast. And I said, wow, and so I said, well, listen, I'll share a couple with you and everything. So I did. I shared a couple on his cell phone so he could listen in.
Well, that's certainly encouraging, James. Mm-hmm. Totally unexpected.
Yeah.
And if that continues to happen, well, that's obviously exciting. And I do feel as if right now we're real early on in this transitional phase. We're pioneering this. But next gen, they're there. And I feel as if they're actually listening to this stuff and contemplating it, that's amazing. That's awesome. And I do feel as if, next gen, I think the future is very, very bright, and things are going to be changing dramatically for the good. And I think everything that's happening in America right now is happening from a different direction. We've turned the ship around, and we're going to be moving towards legitimacy in government, accountability in government, and bringing that not only to government, but bringing it to the agencies of government, and bringing it to the educational systems. And so much of our institutions, so much is broken, and the kids know that everything's broken, and most of these institutions, we don't even need them anymore, because we're going to be able to accommodate for one another from a 5D perspective. Anyway, we got to wrap it up there, James. Thank you so much for your time today, and we'll have to do this again soon.
Thank you, John.